The section for relations with states. A second section of the Secretariat of State is the body within the Roman Curia charged with dealing with matters that involve negotiations with civil governments. It is thus analogous to the foreign ministry of a state. History. The origin of this body is found in the Congregatio Supernegociis Ecclesiasticis Extraordinariis Regni Galliarum that Pope Pius VI set up on 28 May 1793 to deal with problems arising for the Church as a result of the French Revolution. After the fall of Napoleon, Pope Pius VII gave it competence for negotiations with all governments about ecclesiastical matters and renamed it a Congregatio Extraordinaria, Praepositum Negociis Ecclesiasticis Orbis Catholici. Under Pope Leo XIII, its name was shortened to Congregatio Pro Negociis Ecclesiasticis Extraordinariis, which remained its title even after Pope Pius X in 1909 made it part of the Secretariat of State. This arrangement was incorporated into the 1917 Code of Canon Law, which described the Secretariat of State as composed of 3 sections, of which this congregation was the first. The office of the Secretariat of State, presided over by the Cardinal Secretary of State, consists of 3 sections, in the following order. 1. The first section, headed by the Secretary of the Congregation for Extraordinary Ecclesiastical Affairs, deals with the matters that must be submitted to it in accordance with Canon 255, leaving other matters to specific congregations in accordance with their different nature. 2. The second section, headed by the substitute, i.e. alternate Secretary of State, deals with ordinary matters. 3. The third section, headed by the Chancellor of Apostolic Briefs, deals with the dispatch of briefs. In its Canon 255, that code defined the congregation's field of competence as erecting or dividing dioceses and appointing bishops where negotiations with civil governments were involved, and other matters that the Pope might choose to entrust to it, especially those in some link to civil law and the Holy See's agreements and concordats with states. The Cardinal Secretary of State was concurrently prefect of the Congregation for Extraordinary Ecclesiastical Affairs, with the Secretary equivalent to the current Secretary for Relations with States. With the Apostolic Constitution Regimini Ecclesiae Universa of the 15th of August 1967, Pope Paul VI, following the recommendations of the Second Vatican Council, reorganized the Secretariat of State, suppressing the Chancery of Apostolic Briefs. He established what had been the first section as a body distinct from the Secretariat of State, though closely related, and called it the Council for the Public Affairs of the Church. On the 28th of June 1988, Pope John Paul II issued the Apostolic Constitution Pastor Bonus, making that same body, under the name Section for Relations with States, the second of 2 sections of the Secretariat of State, the first being the Section for General Affairs. Present competence. Articles 45 to 47 of Pastor Bonus indicate dealing with heads of government as the special task of the Section for Relations with States. Its field of competence includes fostering diplomatic and other relations with states and other subjects of public international law such as the United Nations and the European Union, dealing with matters of common interest to them and to the Holy See by means such as concordats and similar agreements, while respecting the views of interested episcopal conferences. It represents the Holy See at international organizations and conferences, where agreements have been made with governments about appointments of bishops and a definition of dioceses. It makes the necessary arrangements in consultation with the congregation that has general competence for such matters in the country in question. Composition. From the start, this body has been placed under the presidency of the Cardinal Secretary of State. Under him, it is headed by the Secretary for Relations with States, who is aided by a staff that includes the Under-Secretary for Relations with States. The current Secretary for Relations with States is Archbishop Ulrich Gallagher, and the current Under-Secretary is Monsignor Antoine Camilleri. List of Secretaries of Council for the Public Affairs of the Church and Secretaries for Relations with States. List of Undersecretaries for Relations with States.